When you go to a salon, you trust that everything is safe, clean, and professional, right? But what about the people who are supposed to be checking on that? Who's watching the watchers? Well, today we're diving into a huge state investigation that put the Kentucky Board of Cosmetology under the microscope. And frankly, what they found is pretty wild.
So to get a sense of just how big of a deal this is, look at this number. We're talking about almost 34,000 active licenses. That's every cosmetologist, every nail tech, every esthetician, and every salon across the entire state. It is a massive, massive responsibility.
And that really brings us to the million-dollar question behind this whole investigation, doesn't it? With so many professionals and, the public relying on them for safety, who's making sure the board itself is actually doing its job?
Well, it turns out the Kentucky legislature wanted to find out. In November of 2024, they dropped a report, and the findings? They were not good. The investigation uncovered some really deep systemic failures across the board's most important jobs: how it inspects salons, how it handles its money, and even how it follows its own rules.
Okay, so let's start with inspections. This is the most public-facing thing they do. You'd think this is where the oversight would be the absolute strongest. But investigators found this is exactly where the whole system began to fall apart. Just look at the gap between the rule and the reality here. It's staggering. The board's own regulation says every single licensed location has to be inspected twice a year. Twice. But the investigation found some places that hadn't seen an inspector in a decade. We're talking not since 2014. That's not just falling a little behind schedule, that is a total breakdown.
So, you ask, why the breakdown? Well, the report lays out this whole domino effect of failures. First off, they just don't have enough inspectors. Then, the ones they do have aren't getting trained properly because there are no written policies for it. The checklists they use are way too vague. And get this, in nearly half the files they reviewed, the actual inspection form was just missing. It all adds up to a system with no consistency, no real accountability, and that puts public health at risk.
And the disarray didn't just stop with inspections. Oh no. When investigators started to follow the money, they uncovered problems that were, well, maybe even more serious.
Take a good look at this number. $374,200. That's how much money in fines the board improperly collected and just kept between 2022 and 2024. This was money that, by law, was supposed to go straight to the state.
And this wasn't some kind of gray area or a misunderstanding. The official report puts it in black and white. It says the board was required, statutorily required, to send that money to the State Treasury. And it just didn't do it.
I mean, how does something like this even happen? The investigation pointed to a financial system that was just completely archaic. No electronic system to track fines. Instead, the report said they were using paper files and, I am not making this up, a sticky note system. A sticky note system! Fines weren't even tied to specific violations, so they felt totally random. And if you got a fine, you could only pay with a money order or a cashier's check. It's a system that seems almost designed to be confusing and unaccountable.
So following the money trail revealed total chaos. But what about the rules themselves? The ones that are supposed to guide everything? Well, that's where investigators found the problems went even deeper, down to the very words in the law.
Okay, just look at this. On the left, you've got things the board is supposed to regulate, like twisting, wrapping, weaving, and braiding. But on the right, you have what's exempt for natural hair braiders. The language is nearly identical. This creates complete and utter confusion for everyone involved. Who's supposed to regulate what? The rules don't make it clear.
And that confusion was just everywhere. The report found huge gaps where policies should have been. The board's own regulations actually contradicted state law. Staff members were confused by basic legal terms. There wasn't even a written policy for what an inspector should do if someone tries to hand them cash. And here's a big one. Kentucky is one of the few states left that doesn't require continuing education, so skills and safety knowledge could be seriously outdated. So, with so many broken rules creating such big problems, what's the solution? Thankfully, the report didn't just point out all the issues. It actually laid out a pretty clear path to fix things.
It really all boils down to this simple three-step plan. Step 1, fix the finances, like immediately. Step 2, modernize the entire inspection process from top to bottom. And step 3, update the rule book so it actually makes sense.
And these aren't just vague suggestions. They're very specific orders. First and foremost, the report says give back that $374,000.
Build a modern system for fines and let people pay online, for goodness sake. Create detailed checklists and actual training policies for inspectors so everyone's on the same page. And of course, fix the laws so they don't contradict each other anymore.
So what we have here is a clear chart for reform. It's a roadmap designed to rebuild a system that, let's be honest, had completely failed in its job to protect the public and regulate the industry fairly.
But you know, a roadmap is only as good as the will to actually follow it. And that really leaves us with the big question. Will these changes, even if they're all made, be enough? Enough to restore trust with those 34,000 licensees and the public they serve? Enough to really guarantee safety in Kentucky's beauty industry? I guess only time will tell.